Seventh Dimension is a Swedish progressive metal band. They also list themselves as power metal, although I think it's probably more likely that they're going to be progressive metal slash melodic metal. That's kind of what I get when I listen to this album, at least. But power metal is also one of the genres they are put down as. So the band is from Sweden, which a lot of great metal acts seem to always come from Sweden. I get quite irritated every time I look at where a band comes from, and it always seems to be Sweden. It's a little, it's not annoying. It's just weird that that's what happens. So the band formed around probably 2011, seeing that the first album that they released was 2012, 2013, somewhere about that. And this is the third album that I'm reviewing, The Corrupted Lullaby, which came out in the year 2018. It's a concept album that tells a very thorough story with three vital characters and then just a few other characters that you meet throughout. It consists of 14 tracks. It is a double album. The total length of the album is 2 hours and 7 minutes. That's a pretty sizable album. Not a lot of people would probably like that because they don't have a lot of time on their hands to really dissect such an album, and it being a concept, you kind of need to not listen to it in a background or anything. You kind of need to give it attention in order to really grasp that which is the story. So it's not an easy listen. It's 2 hours. It's progressive. Some of these songs, usually the typical length is around 10 bloody minutes. The longest song on this is 18 minutes. So it's a lot to dissect. It's hard to remember. It will take a lot of listens. There's so much going on that you can listen to it on like the 7th time and it still sounds like you're listening to it for the first time, and it's still just as entertaining and isn't getting stale. So there's some bad things that people will dislike because of these things, and things that people will like because of these exact same reasons. It depends on just what your mindset is, if you really would be willing to put the time in, or if you're not. If you're not, you're just going to find this really draining and just too much. But it would be a darn shame because the album is pretty incredible. So I've listened to this a lot. I need to know this thing kind of inside out, and it being 2 hours 7 minutes, and the songs are huge. There's a lot to dissect, so I really need to know what I'm talking about and know these songs inside out. So I believe I'm at the point where I can now do that. I've also listened to a few other reviews. There's only one other review on this album on YouTube by Empyrean Serpent, and it's 22 minutes, which I thought was incredible because this album. And his review is fantastic. So again, his name is Empyrean Serpent. I urge you to go listen to him because his review is going to be way more better than mine is, because again, it's 22 minutes. It's going to be very cohesive, as for mine's going to be probably a mess and all over the place. He has a really incredible voice for doing this sort of thing. He goes into the story, he goes track by track, and he keeps to the point, as far I seem to like drone on and just never focused. So he loved the album. He gave it a 10 out of 10, which is great. I read another one which was Metal Archives or something, which was 95% out of 100, so that's bloody incredible. And then there was another review by a guy who gave it 6 out of 10 and was pretty appalled by it. He seemed to be overall bored and just not impressed with anything. Obviously, people are entitled to think what they think, but from reading what he had to say on the album, I think he's vitally missed the point, as well as he just doesn't seem to understand or really care. Therefore, he's just not going to really connect to it. So, I'm not really going to go over his opinions. I may bring it up later or in the last video, which won't be this one, but the second one. But now let's just get into this album and go track by track. So, starting with the first track. The Dreamer's Requiem, Prologue. The year is 1989, and it's a day like many others. Time has started to set the sun while the dreamer is on the train ride home with a busy mind, confused about how he feels about his day. He's met someone close to him and feels that they had a pretty good time, like they usually always do. It was nice, but something keeps holding him back from truly enjoying those memories from just a few hours back. As soon as it was over, it was all back to normal. Once home, the dreamer experiences a déjà vu. Maybe it's the feeling of that author on TV who seems to be speaking to him, or maybe it's just a feeling of coming back home from whatever routine has contributed to make the hours pass. There seems to be a message left for him from a missed phone call. He knows it's her. She must have arrived home before he did. She sounds like she always does, so optimistic and hopeful about life. A feeling that feels somewhat familiar to him, yet far gone by now. It's getting late as the dreamer tries to get rid of the confusion about the rendezvous with the lily earlier that day. He can tell that she cares a big deal about him, but he is so unable to open up and truly feel connected to anybody else, that the name he usually whispers before going to bed is the one of another. So this is our first track, The Dreamer's Requiem Prologue. So it being prologue, this is technically an opener, and even though I have given a fair bit of story to this track, there actually isn't a lot of story in the track. So about the year, about the deja vu moment and the author and things, all of this is basically just filler, because all that's really in the track is a conversation between two men about this dream world, this kind of escape, to go to the dream world where what you want is kind of there, and to escape from reality. So that's all it is, which is basically like a breakdown of what this album is about. The Corrupted Lullaby is an escape to a dream world where you go and live in kind of world that you want to have and escape the harsh reality which is the real world, and that's all it is. You do hear the train ride home because you hear the sounds of a train, and then the other spoken bit is the phone call. You hear the phone say you have one missed message, and you hear the voice of the lily. And it's a very angelic voice. She does sound, she's really, really shy as she's speaking to the dreamer, and she does sound very optimistic. It's really well done, actually, the way she does it, and it really kind of engages you in. Like, being music, you don't really have these spoken parts, but what the music's doing and then how beautiful her voice is, it's setting up this journey, what you're going to be going on, because it's really building this symphonic concept album, and it doesn't come across as a generic album anymore. It comes across more like this is going to be probably more in lines with a musical, like if you were to listen to Phantom of the Opera or any type of musical like that, which has a story and a lot of musical elements to it. It's setting up this really big thing. The song is over 5 minutes, which I think probably is a bit long, seeing that all you have is the discussion between the two men, as I said, just speaking about this escape to a dream world and escaping the harsh reality of the real world, and then the phone message of the lily just saying how she enjoyed her day with the dreamer and she would like to do it again. Other than that, there is no words, so everything else I spoke about is just filled in just to give a bit more to the story. So the rest of it is basically just filling that 5 minutes. So the song starts with just like a sound effect, which kind of like a beating heartbeat. It doesn't sound like an actual beating heartbeat, it just kind of pulsates like a beating heart. And then you hear the train, and you just getting all these sound effects just to kind of build up the kind of world and everything to draw you in, and you can visualize it through music instead of the words and vocals trying to tell you the story. Musically, it is giving you the story, which is a constant thing throughout the album. The music does a lot of storytelling as well as conveying the emotions that we need to be feeling along with the actual lyrics, which I think is really, really perfect. The music shouldn't be there for the sake of, well, you need music, it's music. It should convey story and emotion, and the band do it very well. When the men talk, you get the keys, which are really, really kind of angelic and bright. It's the kind of fantasy sound that you get from keys. It's very fantasized sound, and it's really, really nice. And then when the Lily comes in, you got strings and everything, and it's really warm in tone, and it's really, really beautiful. It's just warm, it's relaxed, and it's calm. It's really nice. And then once her phone call ends, obviously we've still got a lot of room to fill, which then the band obviously will start creeping in. You get a few leads from the guitar, just doing a few of these little melody interludes and everything. You get a bit of a key flourish nearer the end as well, which is quite nice. And it's just building this musical soundscape of just these lead interludes from guitar, as well as the fantastical sound of the keys with their little bit of lead flourishes. And it's just kind of trying to build this world, just draw you in before you actually start. It doesn't want to just start abruptly, it wants to build the anticipation and give you the kind of sound and soundscape of this world that they're going for. So yeah, it's 5 minutes, it is fairly long, and I think they probably could have done with shortening it a little bit, because the album is like 2 hours, so they probably could have shortened it, and some people may want to skip the track and just kind of get into the actual thing. But personally, I like this track. I like the little brief breakdown of the kind of lullaby and the kind of whole plot of the album. I like the little message from the Lily. I think that's some good little world building. I like the build and the anticipation. The leads are nice, and the riffs and everything, it's not bland. It is all very catchy and very nice sounding. And it does actually play into the next track, so it just flows into it. And I just really like it. It's a really beautiful build. It's a concept album. It's not just going, this is a song, this is a song. No, it's creating this entire world. And I think the track does it really well. And for 5 minutes with barely nothing, I've definitely gone on a fair bit about it. So let's get into the next track and get this moving along with the next track, Empty Days. It's a new day, or just yet another one. Another day of displaying isolation towards other people. An entire night has passed, and yet he finds himself still immersed in the thoughts from yesterday. There are elements in his current life that should manage to cheer him up, yet he is unable to cling on to those happy occasional moments, and furthermore unable to feel peace. He can't deny that spending time with the Lily is better than his usual status quo. She is, after all, the sweetest person he currently knows. He knows that she's hoping for something stronger between them than just friendship, even though she's never told him how she feels. Being aware of her love is, however, a problem for the dreamer. Due to his inability to let people in and open up his heart, he can't determine whether or not he feels something more for her in return. He feels guilty for maybe giving her false expectations, although he still enjoys spending time with her and does care a big deal about her as well. But somehow, the relation he shares with the Lily is for him maybe more of a way to simulate a past relationship, a past life, and the desire of reuniting with the Rose that passed away 15 years prior to these current events. This passed away soul, the big love of his life that he misses, is what keeps the dreamer empty, the same state he was in before meeting her. So, this is our first actual track. It is still 5 minutes 53 seconds, so technically it's near enough 6 minutes, which is still pretty long for a song. But this is probably in actual fact the most simplistic song on the blooming album, even at this length. So there is actually not much to this song, but because of how great the musicians are at getting emotion across and incredible melody, the song, even though more simplistic and not as intense and just insane as the other tracks go, it is very pleasant because it is that easy and not that complicated, and because of the beautiful warm tones and the incredible melody that is on display in this track, I still see this as one of the best tracks. It's hard to say what one of the tracks are actually the worst, because all of them are incredible. Starting off, as I said, the previous track rolls into this one. It starts off very symphonic, because here we go, now entering the world of the corrupted lullaby, and the story now begins. So it starts very symphonic, not like powerful, and you got choir going crazy, but you just got the guitar just belting out a few chords, very open, until a little bit of a riff kind of starts coming in, and the song's starting. But before it gets into that verse, we get a lead solo from the guitarist. Some people will think, of course, the guitarist, but no, the keyboards sometimes do a solo in this album. So before the verse even starts, we're getting these beautiful leads from the guitarist, and it's absolutely perfect. Like, I can't fault the thing. It's 10 out of 10, this solo. It just soars into being, and it is so beautiful. The tone is so warm and organic, and he has such a great sense of just melody. It's beautiful. It flows like a really beautiful river. It's so graceful. It's catchy. It's memorable. It really stands out. And as I say, because of the story and the build-up of the intro, then going into this beautiful lead and these warm tones and these incredible melodies, you are so easily drawn into the concept of this album. You really just melt into the world. It's really, really damn incredible. So coming out of this section, lead solo, which is just filled with melody and grace and warmth, the guitars actually fade and are not actually played in this little bit of first verse. It is just basically keys and drums. So it's really light, and the keys, I will say, are like the easiest instruments to connect to the human soul. It is beautiful, and I love it for that. That reviewer, which I mentioned a while back, said that the guitarist is the founder member, and he actually orchestrates all of this, as well as the orchestrational elements throughout the album. So why would he take out the guitar? Why would he do that? Why is there not a lot of guitar going on? Because it doesn't fit in the concept. As I just mentioned in this story, the dreamer's woken up and he's still depressed. He's missing the rose. He feels guilty about leading Lily on. So it's quite dark, but it's got this beauty to it and grace. And the guitar doesn't always have to be there. There's still a ton of guitar stuff throughout. We just had a solo, for crying out loud. And this is why I think that reviewer really missed the point. You can have a lot of guitar stuff, but when you take the guitar out, you can then really dissect and appreciate the other instruments, and when the guitar comes in, you then appreciate it, because if it's always there, you don't really miss it. When it comes in, it won't have as much of an effect. So this verse, hearing the keys and just the melody that it does, It's so nice. There is slightly a guitar there. It's like clean, but it's not really focused. It's definitely more the keys that are on the show here. And we obviously get our first introduction of the lead vocalist, who is singing very softly and warm. And he really conveys the emotion that the dreamer is sad and depressed. It's not cheerful sounding, it's not filled to the brim full of energy. It's soft and it's really warm. It's a very pleasant voice to go with that clean, warm guitar, and then the beautiful keys that are on display, and then the bass just giving you that little bit of a thickened sound. Before the chorus even begins, we get another lead solo from the guitar, just again full of melody and warmth, as it just sounds like it's just crying out in pain, which again, the instruments are always displaying the emotions that we should be feeling. It's all one unit telling the story and conveying the emotions, and it is really, really well done. The chorus, the vocalist goes a little bit lighter in tone, but still very soft and warm. And it's very nice as you still get that kind of slightly clean guitar, just really softly in the background. It just flows really well. And then going back to the verse, we get a bit more of a kind of stronger and forefront guitar, so it just changes it ever so slightly. You get a slight bridge section, which obviously changes the pace a little bit, but overall it is basically just this. The last chorus also, they give a bit more kind of backing to the vocalist, so there's like a bit of like a choir, I think, maybe behind him, or maybe the guitar's got a weird kind of tone on it to just kind of, it just sounds like the sound is a bit fuller on that last chorus. So overall it is pretty consistent. As I said, the verses don't drastically change, nor does the chorus. But because the verses are very kind of long as well as the chorus, it gives you a lot, and then they do these sort of changes. And then what is there already is so perfect, because the melody is so nice. You don't really get bored of it and just like, oh come on, I'm bored, do something different. You really just enjoy the melody of it. And it's beautiful because they have an incredible focus on emotion and warmth from the vocalist, which sounds incredible. Then the little light elements in the chorus, which just brighten it up. It's still so warm in tone. And then the guitar leads just conveying that great melody and emotion. It's so perfect. It's an incredible track. So let's get into the next track, When Shadows Call. When Shadows Call. The dreamer wakes up sweaty from a nightmare, which unfortunately has been a common occurrence for years, but this one felt heavier than before. Without hesitation, he runs out on this early misty morning. The memories and the scene pass before him as he stops by a bridge. Once there, he considers ending it all as he stands on the edge of the bridge while closing his eyes. It's an internal battle between reason and wishful thinking. A part of him wants to believe that he may be able to reunite with the Rose in an afterlife by jumping. At the same time, however, his instincts try to save him by making him experience great fear for the only darkness that is darker than the present. Then suddenly, the dreamer hears the lost soul of the Rose calling for him. He can hear her voice and feels a strong connection to her. The voice calls for him for a reunion between them, creating in him the belief that the Rose is still somewhere within the realms of reality. He gets desperate in attempting to find a way to reach her. Now fear keeps him from attempting that visit to an eventful afterlife. Instead, he tries to find hope in the idea of one day meeting her again. Once the last season of life calls for his name, he begs to God for her to still exist somewhere in some form. That there's a place out there where they can reunite, and where their love and minds can remain immortal. So, this track is a bit bigger than the previous one. It's 8 minutes 21 seconds, and therefore this song has a bit more to it than the previous one. it still has a really nice and easy flow to it. There's not like drastic, intense things going on, but it is a bit bigger than the previous. So this track kind of is bled into from the previous track, so the previous track just kind of bleeds into this, so the overall sound and the story and the flow just keeps kind of going. And it kind of starts atmospheric with, you know, the pianos and everything, and you think, oh, it's still going to be very light and very melodic, there's not going to be much to it. But then, not too long in, you actually do get very intense rhythm going. You get keys going very intense, and it's a little heavy. It's not, you know, like proper, you know, heavy metal type of thing, but it does have an intensity to it, and then it's got a lot of energy, and it sounds great, like the tones and then the energy, and you're just like, okay, let's get going. It then breaks into a lead solo with the guitar, and again, it's a focus on melody. It's got that warmth to it. It still doesn't sound cheerful or that energetic. As obviously the kind of sound that it's going for, it's still kind of depressed at this point in the story. So it still sounds quite dark, although it is quite melodic. But coming off of this, that little chunk, as I said, that was the keys being quite intense and full of energy. When it actually gets to your verse, there is zero guitar, there is none at all. It is again back to piano, bass and drums, which I don't mind. It's really, really pleasant. And then the vocalist isn't singing as softly, he's just very light and very clear. And halfway through your verse, the guitar comes in. It's not just simplistic chords or anything. It's just got this nice little kind of lead melody to it that keeps repeating. He's not going off on one or anything. It's just this nice subtle kind of lead that he does, quite pleasant and light to go with the, you know, light keys and everything, keeping everything just really musical and angelic and graceful. The chorus to this song, unlike the previous song where everything kind of just got a little heightened but was still very soft and melodic, this chorus actually has a bit of energy and intensity to it. The actual riffs underneath the vocalist for this chorus, I think, seems quite complicated. The guitars, the keys, it all sounds quite complex and technical. As for the vocalist, honestly, he sings with a bit more kind of oomph and energy. He has a fair few really high notes in here, and obviously the chorus is quite long. Obviously, it's not just repetitive and short and simple. It's long with a lot of different little elements to it. You got the high notes, and then you got the first little bit. He gets a bit deeper in one section, and he gets near the end. It gets a bit kind of lighter again. The second verse, you get a bit more guitars, and that gives it a bit of a difference. It's still kind of going the same way. The chorus again goes a bit the same way. I think some of the actual lyrics change a little bit and aren't the same as your first chorus. The solo in the proper solo position of songs is actually a key solo. It's got melody to it, but it's got a technicality to it. Some parts are a little quick and fast, but then he still kind of slows down and kind of opens the sound up to keep the melody to it. It's got a good length to it, so good solo. The nice part is what comes after this. You get some nice keys and nice clean guitar. And then you got some really kind of like pop and bass that is kind of separated from the keys and the guitar. So it's got this really nice, clean, angelic sound to it, which is obviously because what's coming, the music has to represent and go with the emotion and sound of what's about to happen. So this section is The Rose, which is actually sung by a female, and her voice is really, really nice. It is so light and angelic. The Rose is obviously set up to be this absolute perfect, beautiful person, and therefore the music behind her has to sound really nice and angelic, and the voice can't really be harsh at all. It's very light and soft and so angelic. It's so perfect, which is why that little bit before she starts singing after that key solo, it sounds quite nice and pleasant. And she sings obviously for the dreamer to find her and be reunited again. The last word is find me, which ends on a bit of a whisper. And then the music shifts a little bit, but maintains that same kind of sound that they were doing with The Rose, until you get back to the dreamer taking charge and singing again. So when he comes in, everything gets kind of energetic again. That little kind of section piece that was in the intro is a bit kind of here, just maybe slightly altered to an extent. So it's energetic, it's like focus and a bit of confusion and everything, because the dreamer doesn't really know if this is real or if he should really listen, or really what he's supposed to really do. So it's like kind of confused, but also a little bit focused because he's now heard The Rose, so he's got maybe a bit of more of an action plan. And then it goes back into your chorus and everything, and then obviously it comes to an end. So still a lot of shifting. You got the big intro, which sets up then a bit of energy in the intro, the lead that was in the intro, the beautiful verse, and then the energetic chorus, the slight alteration with the verse. You get a key solo, you get a different sex vocalist, which gives a whole different contrast to that of what a male would sound like. And again, coming off of the intro track, which had the setup and then the spoken elements, and then the previous track, Empty Days, everything that's about. We're only 3 tracks in, technically just 2, because the first track is an intro. We're already set on this very interesting journey with so much kind of going on musically and so much emotion being portrayed. Already, you just feel like you've been sent on this huge journey, and we're not really anywhere close to the end yet. So let's get into our next track, Scent of a Rose. Scent of a Rose. Memories inhabit the dreamer as we jump back to 1971, where a young dreamer already struggled with some fundamental issues. Ever since he was a child, he's felt alone. He battles feelings of loneliness due to the difficulty of finding people that he believes truly understands him. He was never able to bond with other people the way others did. He never found himself in the position of those couples he'd see, joking and laughing while strolling down the roads, sharing their lives. He was never able to have a relaxed connection with another human like they seemed to. He felt envy but hopelessness regarding finding a solution to change his life. One day, however, his life did change while staring into a painting that really hooked him in an art gallery. From nowhere, this young woman commented on the painting, sharing his view and love for it. Despite her appearing like the opposite of the dreamer, being very energetic and social, the two shared a bond. And just like that, out of nowhere, the dreamer felt an instant connection. It was a feeling so new and exciting, beyond what he had imagined that feeling to be like. On top of it all, the feeling was mutual. This gave the dreamer the courage to open up for this woman, the Rose. As some years went by, the dreamer had become a changed man. For once in his life, he had found love and peace within himself. The Rose was his saviour and his fuel to live. They were both devoted to live for each other, for them as one till their final days would bring them apart. The memories of these events, however, carry with them great pain. It is painful for the dreamer to relive these memories in detail, because even though he manages to calm down while immersed in the memories of their time together, he will always end up being reminded of the day she was gone forever. So this track is definitely one of my favourite tracks, if not the favourite. It is 8 minutes and 39 seconds, and yet again the musicianship has completely changed to give us something completely different. And even yet, it is incredibly different to basically metal, because this track mostly is all acoustic. And damn, is it beautiful and incredible. When you listen to metal, you don't really get acoustic tracks. Not in an entirety, at least. If barely any acoustic, in fairness. So, this is just so new and a breath of fresh air just to listen to something different and still beautiful, with great musicianship throughout. So starting the track off, we still start with a little bit of atmosphere as we then get the acoustic guitar. It's not very clean and vivid, it sounds a little kind of muted and a bit kind of thick in tone as it keeps kind of playing until eventually it opens up and it becomes clean and unmuted. And you get the keys, and then you get the drum doing its own beat. When I showed this to my dad, he said that the drum when it started was completely kind of out of time and it wasn't really keeping a consistent beat. I kind of said that I kind of like that because at this point he's not just there to do the beat, he's doing a nice melody, his own melody thing, just like the acoustic is doing. You got the acoustic doing this nice melody that's beautiful, and then you got the drums doing this nice melody of its own, just giving this, beauty. Just it sounds great. And then the drum comes into its own beat, and then just as the verse kind of kicks in, you get the acoustic just isolated, just completely by itself, and nothing else there. It just does its nice little melody into the verse. And the verse musically, it's just acoustic and piano. There is actually no drums nor keys. Did I say keys? There's no drums nor bass, it's just acoustic and keys. And obviously the vocalist. So the vocalist again is doing a whole new kind of emotion and sound. He's very, very deep in this first little verse. It's very, very deep, very sad. He still sounds clear, you can understand what he's saying. In other songs it's quite difficult. He's very deep and soft-spoken, which is a new kind of realm for this vocalist, showing all the kind of emotions he can put behind them and the range of what his voice is capable of. The piano and acoustic sound beautiful, it's really soft and it's very, very pleasant. And then we get into the more energetic element as a lead acoustic solo kicks in. This is amazing. How often do you really get an acoustic solo in heavy metal? Do you think Slipknot's going to really kick out a bloody acoustic solo with Marilyn Manson? I don't think so. Even Avenged Sevenfold has only done it once, and they are a very versatile band in my opinion. Maiden, I don't know if they've ever even had an acoustic solo. It's not really that well known, yet here we've got an entire track of acoustic until the end. I'll get into that when I get to the end, don't rush me. But this acoustic solo, it's brilliant. Like, obviously if you've got to do it, you've got to know what to do it. Just because it's acoustic doesn't mean, well, it's just perfect no matter who's playing it. No, you still need a great player. And this guy, it's so melodic, it really has grace to it. And again, this is a 10 out of 10. This is perfection. It sounds great. And then you get back into your verse with the vocalist, and the energy sounds great. You've got the drums and you've got the guitar going, and it's got this real nice melody to it. It's not soft. I kind of take it as it's like the dreamer and the rose dancing. That's the visualization I get. They're doing a Latin kind of dance, their hands caressing over each other, and the rest of the world just ceases to be. And that is the image I get. It's so rhythmic and beautiful, and it's so warm and nice. And the vocalist conveys this again in his voice. He's got so much like raw, like passion to his voice, and it just comes across brilliantly. I can really sense just them two together, and even if they're within a crowd on the dance floor, I just feel like time just freezes, and all it is this moment shared between the two of them. It's so perfectly crafted, and because of it, I'm so drawn in. I'm so invested in this song because of how beautifully well done it is. I'm so invested. It's so beautiful and graceful. I can feel the emotion in the music, the voice. It is absolute perfection. I don't know what else you can do. Usually I can always give a bit of advice, something, a little thing just to heighten a song. Like maybe it could have been better with this. I would not touch this song at all. I wouldn't. It is perfect the way it is. Yet another acoustic solo, again where the solo naturally fits. And this is a bit longer now because it is the real solo. And it's just perfect, 10 out of 10. It's got such melody and grace to it. It's so well played. The tone of the acoustic, God does it sound nice. It's so warm and pleasant. And then after the solo, that leads us into the finale of the song, where we go back to the chorus. The chorus is lyrically just completely altered. It's not the same at all. I don't think any song really repeats itself. I don't know if it really has an actual fundamental chorus. So when it gets into this final chorus, this is when the electric guitars really come in, and then the voice gets really, really bright and full of energy, and it's just the most heavy part of the song, full of energy and power with that incorporation of the electric guitar, and it sounds incredible. It's just incredible just how it just keeps building. But then right at the end it gets a bit darker, as he then starts singing about the fact that the rose is actually gone. So the last word from the dreamer is him screaming out, "Gone," that the rose is gone. So let's get into our next track. October 5th, 1974, Past Remorse. We go back in time 15 years to be exact, to the memories he's been trying to force away and to repress. The year is 1974, and the dreamer has been with the rose for a little more than 3.5 years. On this day, the dreamer and the rose had a fight at home, no more or less than the kind of fight that can occur in any relationship. Not having the time there and then to sort things out, she had left home to go to work in a very emotional state of mind due to the fight they had. Sadly, on her way to work, she was involved in a traffic accident. The dreamer receives a phone call about his wife being at the hospital. The dreamer drops the phone, drives to the hospital, and witnesses her passing by the hospital bed on this awful day. Before passing away, she never regained consciousness, and so the dreamer never had the opportunity to say goodbye. The dreamer is in shock, breaks down, and later experiences extreme anger, blaming himself for what happened to her. He considers himself guilty for having put her in an incurious state of mind before leaving home, and thinks that if this wasn't for him, he would have been more cautious. He drives home in rage, screams in emotional pain as he isolates himself from their home that had now become his fortress of solitude. He would spend his upcoming years not being able to forgive himself and not being able to find the same connection that he had with the rose. His far as he is concerned, he's the only one to ever truly understand him. So, this track is the longest so far. It's 12 minutes, 37 seconds. So, there is a lot to this track. There is a lot going on, and yet again, with the journey and great musicianship and imagination of this band, this track sounds very different to that of the other tracks, which is fantastic. So starting this track off, we get a whole new atmosphere, starting with bass and drums, which gives not really the most energetic kind of theming. It's thick, it's dark. The guitar comes in, but it's like scratching the pick over the strings as it comes in and out, very hauntingly, very scratchy. It seems dark, like this isn't good, this isn't bright, something's gonna happen. Obviously I've just told you the story so you know it is, but musically you are already getting that because the music, as I say, always is conveying the story and emotion. You can get that from the music, not just the lyrics, which shows how great the musicianship is in the songwriting. As the intro keeps continuing, as it goes through multiple layers, it does get a little bit more energetic and brighter as you get little leads from guitar and keys and things. But it never sounds overly bright. It's like it's got a nice melody to it, but it still sounds like there's something dark going on, but it still sounds bright. So you don't really know what's happening. When the verse actually kicks in, it sounds good and cheerful, like that of what the previous tracks have actually been doing. It's piano and it sounds nice, and then the vocalist is clean and he sounds pleasant, as he obviously is singing that it is a day like any other, and obviously that's the way it has to be portrayed. It can't be dark and menacing when at this moment in time in the story nothing is going wrong, which is that confusion between that intro, which is the reason why I think it was there. It seemed dark and then had its bright elements, and here it's no bright because nothing yet has happened, but it's going to. So the first verse is actually quite pleasant with him singing, and then the piano and everything sounds beautiful. And then when it gets to the chorus, he's singing "Don't walk away, don't let's settle things the right way, don't walk into the heavy rain." And obviously he sounds a bit more darker and a bit kind of aggressive in his tone. Don't walk away, let's settle this the right way. He doesn't want her to leave, and he portrays that in his voice with it being a bit more kind of aggressive, a bit more assertive in the way he's speaking to the rose here. Like, it's not, oh, don't walk away, don't walk away. He's been a little bit dominating in his tone with her. He doesn't want her to leave. And then musically, obviously, it darkens up a little bit. You get a slight sound of an ambulance, but then it goes back to the verse, and now it's again the same, but the vocalist has now got a bit more of a darker tone, as well as some musical instruments take a bit of a darker tone as well, as he goes searching in the rain to find her, and she is nowhere to be found. Then we get back into the chorus, which then leads to the ambulance noise being a bit more prominent again. We get a phone call. We don't get any words, it is basically just a phone call. As the phone rings. Nothing said, just a ringing phone as well as hospital silence. Then we get into our solo, which first is the guitar solo. The guitar solo is very frantic, it's not warm in tone, it's very sharp, and it's quite technical. There's a lot of speed, there's a lot of... It's not refined, it's confused, it's frantic, and that's the way it should be. Obviously I prefer the solos which are melodic and soft, but to have that here would be ridiculous. It doesn't fit within the concept. At this moment in time, we're in a panic. The dreamer is panicked, he's frantic, his wife is in hospital and may be dying. So it's frantic, it's intense, it's aggressive, it's sharp in tone. Then we move into the key solo, which seems to kind of follow this sort of line, but instead it has a bit more open elements. It's got the technical, fast, aggressive moments in there, but then it has the slow part. So I think the keys are going for sadness and kind of like sorrow and things like this, as for the guitar was the panic and the anger and rage and things. So then we get the heart monitor beeping, and then it cuts out, and then what we're left with is really dark tones, as we are left with acoustic guitar by itself, very deep in sound. It's just quiet, it's very dark, it's isolated, it's not pleasant. And then we get strings softly coming in, and it's incredibly haunting. And obviously this is setting the emotion again of the dreamer. He is alone, he's in shock, he's isolated, it's dark, it's sad. And that's what it's doing, it's isolated, it's dark, it's slow because of the shock. And then all of a sudden, we get incredible aggression, like the guitars come in, they are very aggressive, there's a lot of gain, and there's technicality going on. This is anger now. The vocalist singing in, some may find it a bit cringy because of the kind of tone he goes for, but it's very kind of deep as he sings Tears Run Like Nothing Else, or something along them lines. And he sings it really deep and gnarly. Tears run like nothing else. And like, I can't do it because I'm not a bloody vocalist. But it's very, very deep. So again, the vocalist is trying to portray emotion, and so still, again, all the elements he is capable of. So I still appreciate it. And then he obviously opens up, and his voice has a bit of like whine to it. And again, he goes into high notes, and then it goes back into your chorus, which again, the lyrics kind of change to now kind of incorporate the fact that the rose is, in actual fact, dead at this point. So again, the chorus never maintains the same, which kind of actually runs through the album. Lyrically, it does keep changing as the concept goes, but the chorus musically remains the same. I kind of do like this, and yeah, again, we've got a very dark song. The other songs haven't been this dark and menacing. We've had panic and fear. We've not really had that in the previous tracks. We've had anger with really, really heavy riffs. We have not had anything like that before. Again, showing just the variation of music that we have got going on so far, and there's still so much yet to come. We've got still more variation from the vocalist with just how varied and the amount of emotion he can portray in his voice. So very, very dark. The solos aren't my favourite because I obviously like the more melodic stuff, but again, it doesn't call for it. It has to be frantic and aggressive, and I guess it does show the technicality of what the guitarist can do, as it is very complex and full of complexity. And then obviously the key's doing something a bit more haunting. So let's get into the next track now. Invitation. We go back to Story's present time in 1989. The dreamer is having yet another rough emotional night, which has become a reoccurring event for him ever since the passing of the rose. Used to pain and get in a better mood, he enters a bar to drink while trying to reconnect with that voice of the rose again, whispering out loud while trying to speak to her. Hearing the dreamer's mourning, an old man approaches him and gets to know about the dreamer's situation. This man, the illusionist, patiently listens to the dreamer's story and offers him a solution. He hands him over a music box, supposed to be a key to enter a world where she could be found. The illusionist says that the box contains a melody that he created, simply named the lullaby. He tells the dreamer that by listening to this song, it will make him transcend to another dimension where she can be found. It is a world where everything is created based on the listener's dreams and inner desires. The illusionist, being very old, offers to not only lend the box but to give it away to the dreamer. In return, he asks the dreamer the favour of keeping up his work. Although he doesn't fully understand what the illusionist means, the dreamer, skeptic yet desperate, makes up his mind and accepts the gift. The rain starts to pour down as the dreamer is taking his cab back home. One time, he lays down on his bed with the box next to him. He opens the box and closes his eyes. So, this song is 11 minutes 52 seconds, so again technically you could say it's 12 minutes long, with a fair bit going on. This is actually the first track that doesn't actually contain a solo from keys, guitar or anything on that line. Some people will be annoyed about that. I definitely know one person, Daniel. I'm sure this guy would probably think, well, I would also think the same, which technically I would, but with the amount of solos you get in this album and the fact that they're all perfection in the first place, and just all the musicality and the journey and just how epic everything is, I don't really mind if they miss one track. So I'm not that fussed. But a lot still goes on in this track to keep you invested, and you don't really know that you're really missing anything because musically everything is still quite brilliant. You don't really notice it, and you're not, as I said, that bothered. Well, at least I'm not. So this track again musically is a bit of a shift, as this is got a lot of heavy elements to it. The song actually just starts abruptly heavy, which is very unlike all the other tracks, which actually has a nice opening to it. It sets it up, it builds into the music and then has very musical tones to it. This is abrupt, this is quite heavy, very direct. There is no leads to this, there is no melody, it is all just different variations of just being very direct and very aggressive. And it remains like this for actually a while. It goes through a lot of different shifts. You could probably argue the fact that it goes on for too long, seeing that there is actually no leads or nothing overly musical about it. It's just a load of aggressive riffs that just kind of keep changing to sound like a new variation of an aggressive riff. So technically you probably could shorten it. Again, I still see it as this really huge concept, bigger than life thing. So I still see it as building and, building the world and just kind of setting a tone. Although when the verse comes in, the tone actually does shift as it goes to your dreamer, and I think it's just piano. So it actually goes again to something melodic and kind of dark, as obviously the dreamer is Sam Bar. So again, the vocalist is taking a very deep, brooding kind of voice to this, again showing the emotion of what the dreamer goes through very well, and again a different kind of range to him. And musically it's soft again. When that verse comes to an end, and the guitars get unbelievably aggressive, like the intensity is really high. It's the most intense probably so far on the album, this little kind of riff section. It's very quick, it's very aggressive and intense. I don't know if you get the chorus at this point or if it goes to the Egyptian sound. Personally, I think it does go to the Egyptian sound, so this is when the illusionist comes to him. So, as I say, it takes an Egyptian kind of sound to it, and the vocalist also sings it in that kind of Arabic kind of way. I don't know if anyone knows of Miraf, which is an Arabic band, but that's kind of how it sounds. The music sounds Arabic, and the vocalist of Miraf has that tone to him because he comes from that kind of area. So the vocalist of this band actually does portray that kind of voice, which again shows the variation to him. Originally I kind of thought, why the Egyptian tone? Why is he singing like this? It's kind of weird. But it actually plays into the fact that this is The Illusionist, and there is a track on the later album which is solely about the kind of story behind The Illusionist, and that entire song has that theme. So I'm like, so with that you go, oh, so this Egyptian thing, it's the theme track of the character, and that is why it is here. And again, it gives variation. You get a whole new kind of concept to the fact that it's now going to like Arabic Egyptian metal, which, well, that's something, I guess, that you don't really hear that often. So again, I really appreciate just the amount of musicianship and creativity, and just how thought-provoking, obviously, these guys are. The amount of thought and variation they put in, and how everything flows very naturally. And the emotion of the vocalist, everything really is working very well. And you can tell these guys really tried hard. I don't think this was something they were just laying back on and just did within a week. It seems that this thing took probably years in the making, and they really had to perfect it. So then the Illusionist comes in, and obviously they have a discussion, and this gets you into your chorus, which is your melody part, is the chorus, where it starts singing about a land where I can be free, invitation, invitation. So it's a bit more open now and has a bit more kind of melody to it. After that, it gets a bit kind of dark, and the guitarist does a weird technique where he actually flips the string while tuning the guitar and then tuning it back, and he just keeps doing that over and over again. So it's a weird kind of concept to kind of musically play the tuning and detuning of the guitar, how weird that is. So I'm guessing this is obviously for an effect, to convey something, which may be kind of twisted thing that the Illusionist is doing. Something is quite twisted and distorted about this. It's not probably what the Illusionist is saying. It's probably not the full story. There's something missing to this. There's something deeper than what the Illusionist is putting forward. So something's quite twisted and distorted, and that is probably the reason for what the guitarist is doing, which obviously is genius if that is right, to obviously do the detuning and tuning of the guitar to convey that, if that is in fact what is the point. That's genius. Like, seriously, it's so well thought out to come up with that. So if that's the case, then well done, that's brilliant. And then it is slightly dark. There's not much going on, it's quite dark. Then it builds back up, and then we get a nice kind of melody as the dreamer is kind of saying to himself that what this can be, what it can do. It's got a nice kind of melody to it. We then get to our first, well, not first, the intro had it, but our first proper spoken part on the album, which is the old man, the Illusionist, as he actually speaks, and all that's behind him is keys and everything, because obviously everything kind of has to quieten down because we need to hear the guy. So then he's speaking obviously about the music box and everything. The dreamer actually speaks as well, which I never actually noticed because he's so very quiet. This is one of the big issues with the album, which I'll keep touching on as I progress, which will be the next video. But yeah, the dreamer is really quiet in the mix. You really have to listen to him. You can hear him if you listen very carefully. If not, he is so low in the mix you are going to miss it if you know he's there at all. It's pretty bad. So that's a bit of a shame. The Illusionist, you can hear him, thank God. So you can hear what he's saying in the story he's putting forward. So that's great that we can actually hear that. And the piano's behind him, it's nice. That guy Empyrean Serpent said that sometimes the spoken part was a bit of a disconnect and it comes across cheesy. I don't really think so, because when you kind of look at musicals, this sort of thing happens, and this album definitely set up like a musical. It's like a soundtrack to a movie. So I do think it works if they obviously turn the volume up on all the characters, which they don't in the later parts, and I'm going to mention that when I get to them. So after that, we then get you know, sound effects for what's happening within the story. You get a car coming to a stop, and then the dreamer and taxi driver just talking about how much it's going to be and things, and here's your change, blah blah blah. And then you hear the door open as the dreamer steps out, and then you hear the rain, and then you hear the ticking clock, which probably represents the time that keeps passing. And then we get on to the last track of Act 1. The lullaby. While laying on the bed, he hears the very first notes of the lullaby. His surroundings slowly start to fade as he listens to the music putting him to sleep. His heart starts to beat slower and he gets more relaxed than he's ever been. The music continues to carry him further into what has to be the lands that the illusionist has talked to him about. And that is basically it. The lullaby is 2 minutes 17 seconds. It's not the band playing, it is that of what the lullaby is. So musically, it's just a lullaby, that is all it is. You hear the lullaby, and that is what closes the album before Act 2 begins, with the rest of the story and tracks. So as far as the lullaby goes, as I say, it's not the band, but it's a very pleasant sound. The lullaby, it's really nice as it keeps progressing, and it gets better and better, especially right near the end. The melody, the way it goes, it's so nice. So there's not much to really say about it, but besides, it's a lullaby, that is all it is. It's very pleasant, a very pleasant lullaby. And because the composer is the guitarist, I'm guessing he did this. He's the one who wrote this out. And wow, it's very beautiful. It's really great. And it's nice to know that the band can obviously put together something so nice, and the fact that it is actually in fact a lullaby. So that is it. It's a very pleasant sound. It's beautiful. What the sound of the lullaby is. And this is where the story of Act 1 ends, and Act 2 will begin as he enters the dream world of the corrupted lullaby.